Okay, since I've come on YouTube to talk about my LSD use, I've taken my first LSD trip. I did that this morning. Right now it's Saturday, January 30th, 1:20 a.m. We're talking about Friday morning. At 8:30, I ate 600 micrograms of LSD just before eating my oatmeal. And then while I was eating my oatmeal, well, I guess everything was alright. But after about a half hour, I was definitely starting to get the jitters. And I had upper body weakness. And I really was getting the jitters. So one thing I was thinking about when I took it was I was going to analyze what's going on when I take it. And one thing I was thinking about was how concerned am I? How nervous am I when I'm taking it? And I realized I'm not nervous. Nah, not really. You know, I'm used to LSD, so I'm not really that worried about it at all, really. But there is an outside chance that something can happen. But it's mostly just the jitters that you get when it starts to take effect. A funny feeling that you get for about 5 to 15 minutes. So one thing that I didn't talk about was something known as setting, which is all about, it's very important that you understand what the setting is that you're taking the LSD is. In other words, who you're with and where you're going to be, basically. For me, I'm alone, and what I do is I get in the bathtub about 1 hour after eating it, and I stay in there for 5 hours. So I get out of the bathtub at like 6 hours after eating the LSD. So I did that. I got in the bathtub as usual. Everything was fine, you know. And I was listening to some Jimi Hendrix, I guess, and I was like, wow, I have a lot of Jimi Hendrix on this playlist. And Jimi Hendrix can be a little bit takes you. So I'm listening to Jimmy, and then I blacked out for about maybe 90 minutes to 2 hours. That's happened to me one other time. I think it was the time before this, which was another 600 microgram trip I took. I blacked out for like an hour maybe. I was like amazed by how long I had been out based on the song I was listening to when I came back. I was like, because I know the playlist quite well, and I'm like, what's going on? So I guess I am having what would be called known as LSD blackouts. I guess because that's what it is. It's a total blackout. I have no idea what happened. So, I don't really have any problem with it. It's just a waste. Seems like a waste. I don't know. Maybe I was enjoying myself or something. I don't know. Just don't know. Weird. But coming back was very interesting because I started becoming aware of some song that I don't really like. I'm listening to it, I'm like, why am I hearing this song? I'm all confused. And one thing I can say about LSD from this experience, I got the idea was that I have been delirious as a child. One time I had a fever of like 104, and I was delirious, and I was like, didn't really like it. but it was freaky, very freaky. I was home alone on the couch, and there was this clock on the mantle that was going like tick tock, tick tock. And I was just like, wow, this is like freaky, man, really freaky. But and then you get this thing with your the way your hands feel, something like thick. So it's this thick feeling. It's like it's unpleasant, but it is interesting. So it can give you some idea about what you could experience on LSD, because I was getting something like that today. When I came back, I was in like a twilight kind of delirium. But then it didn't take me long to figure out what was going on. So then I was like, okay, so well, I'm going to go with this because this is really freaky, it's interesting, So I guess one thing I was wondering was going to happen was if I was going to get this feeling of dread, because I had mentioned that before. And one thing that I noticed about that feeling of dread from this trip is that actually that could be quite a bit of the trip. I mean, it could be like 10, 20 minutes, maybe coming and going, but it's not 1 to 3 minutes like I was thinking before. It's like a lot more. It's like, ooh. But the thing is about it, I don't care. I like the trip. It's interesting. Now, I do have fear. And one thing that I fear is the United States federal government with their, ideas about like torturing people and locking people up indefinitely. Calling somebody something or other and giving them the right to do whatever they want. So that really frightens me. Of course, the way the planet's being destroyed frightens me. So I am somebody that is quite frightened. So I'm like, when I'm coming back, I'm like, whoa. One thing I've noticed when I'm on LSD is I imagine what it's like to be someone that's really on the bottom. Because I figure, you have to think about stuff like that. And, maybe I'll be on the bottom. And in some ways, I mean, at least if I thought about it, I'd be better prepared for it. But it is something that I like to do. And so it is frightening, but it's easier. It's the easiest thing to do at the time. Is to accept the dread. And I'm like, thinking about like torture, something like that. Now, I've had dealings with the criminal justice system, so I know something about these matters. But I'm just like, it's easier just to succumb to it. And then it passes more or less. But it's a lot more than I described, really. But that is the trend that I'm going, is into more dread. But I don't really have a problem with it. Now, one thing that did happen was when I was coming back. Now, generally I knew what was going on, and I was just going with it. I was sort of like imagining things. but I wasn't delusional. But there was the period of delirium. That was a sort of twilight kind of condition that I got myself into there for a while.